Please welcome our keynote speaker, best-selling author and business coach, Amy Slater.
Thank you so much for that nice introduction. And I'm thrilled to be here. And you never really know how your life is going to come full circle. And I hope over the next several minutes, and I know I'm standing between you and lunch and a 7-day challenge, but I hope that I can maybe give you a few insights and talk a little bit about magic. But first, before we get started, I'd like to ask those out there, have you ever faced uncertainty in your life? And if I see some people not raising your hands, I'd like to meet you afterwards. And please give me a little bit of your advice. But as you heard through the opening video, I did go through quite a bit of uncertainty in my life, and I was seeking meaning and purpose. And I also want to let you know that Ralph and I were not in cahoots with our presentations. I don't know if he saw mine, but I had not seen his. But I think you'll hear some of the same themes resonating all around passion and purpose and doing what it is that you love to do and to try to do it effortlessly. But first, a little bit about me, and then we'll get on to some of the additional challenges you're going to be presented with. So who am I today? And I stress today because it's been a journey. I've spent over 25 years in corporate sales and sales leadership in technology companies like Cisco, Salesforce.com, AT&T, and on and on. I actually started my career selling a very glamorous thing, which maybe some of you out there probably are in my age range, long distance, where you actually had to pay money to place a phone call, just even across the street at times. So I was really around for that unraveling of the telecommunications industry and the growth of cloud technology. And people who are not in technology say, cloud, maybe there's a dark cloud over her head, but really the cloud, where is it that all of this information is stored about the Univera products? It's in the cloud. But really trying to understand that. But all the while, I was developing leadership skills and really spending time coaching and getting to know what it is to build a relationship and to build trust, not only with my employees, but with my customers. And that's really what this is all about. It's not just being in an enterprise job, but what you do every day. I'm now doing something similar. We're all in this room entrepreneurs. So I'd like you to give yourselves a round of applause for what it is that you do every day. So before I go here, I don't know how I managed to do that. Go back here for a second. So a year ago, I hired a publicist because I had written a book. I had self-published a book, and it's called Moments, Magic, Miracles, and best of all, Martinis. And the subtext is how to move forward in times of uncertainty. So it seems all great, published a book, did all that, but really why? I really had come to the realization that I wanted to share my journey with other people. I'm a mother of 3 daughters. I think you saw the photograph of my daughters, ages 22, 20, and 12. And I think the 12 is here to teach me new lessons on how to be an even better parent and how to be present and stay in the moment. But it wasn't always this pretty picture. So if you turn back the clock to 2010, I had come to a place of despair and tremendous sadness and trying to figure out, why am I here? What am I doing? Is this how I want to spend the rest of my life? So this is who I was. I was a professional saleswoman, and I had a really good accelerating career at Cisco, but all the while I was in a pretty miserable situation and I was unhappily married. And I don't want you to raise your hand if you're one of those, because I don't want to know. And I'm not sure your spouse would either. But I was not very happy. And with my children, they were much younger, trying to juggle and balance, being a wife and a parent and a daughter and all of those things. And then, as if that wasn't enough, going through divorce, my father was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia and Parkinson's. And my father was larger than life, and I heard one of the gals talk about, the cups are overflowing here, we need bigger cups. That was my father, who unfortunately passed away 3 months ago. But when I wrote the book, when I started to write the book, he had just been diagnosed with Lewy body dementia. And then as if that wasn't enough, and here's the full circle zinger that I want to share with you, is that I have IBS. And I really like to just use the acronym because it's easier to say than really what it is, but it's on the screen if you don't know what it is. But in this business, I'm sure, you talk all about digestion and enzymes and how do you get better. Well, that was a journey that I had to undertake because I was faced with this trifecta of misery. And so the catch here is that when I was introduced to Univera and asked to speak today, I said, do you know what healed me when I was going through my terrible bout with IBS? And I went and saw a nutritionist after seeing doctors, and it was before all the different medications they have now for IBS D and C, and I'm not going to tell you which I have. But I went to a nutritionist, and do you know what I drank every morning when I woke up? Aloe. And I'm not going to cry, but it gives me chills to think about. And when I heard Ralph talking about it, and can you save one person? And I didn't seek out this opportunity to speak here today. I'm so glad that I'm here. Harris introduced me to Univera through a friend of mine. And you never know what magic is going to come if you're just there to allow it. And so I thank you. And when I realized that it was about aloe vera, I thought, oh my gosh, I've got to get on this bandwagon. And so super exciting for me to be here. And again, it's really come full circle. So then I'm happy to say that I came to an awakening. And I hope some of you, are still awake. And I know that lunch is in the other room. But I had this awakening. And I was sitting in a seat similar to you a number of years ago. And it was through my job at the time at Salesforce. And there was a motivational speaker. And he called himself a mental toughness coach. So, we heard the doctors all talk about, your muscles, which they're there, muscles here and, and in your brain. And so what is it that we do to train our brains? And so I was sitting there and it was a time when I was kind of getting through my divorce and all of that. And I was sitting in this room. I was in Arizona. It was, like 100 degrees outside. And it was about 50 degrees inside the room. So, I was just sort of sitting at the table shivering. And all of a sudden, this guy, kind of larger than life, gets on stage. His name is Chris Dorris, D-O-R-R-I-S. Look him up. He's awesome. Anyhow, and he started talking about mindset. And I've heard a number of people talk about it. Ralph talked about it earlier. It's about your mind and what you choose. And there were two things. I walked away with a lot of information, but there were two things that I've really embraced after that conversation that I heard. And the one thing about positivity, has anybody here heard reference to the O line? Good, it'll be something new. The O line stands for the line of observation. So here we are in Seattle, and I arrived yesterday. The sun was shining, and it was warm. I don't know, let's just call it 75 degrees. So the O line would be to say, Today, it's 75 degrees. It's an observation, it's a fact. Now, if I was kind of in a grouchy mood, which I try not to be too often, I would be going below the O line and I said, oh my God, it's so hot. I gotta get into the air conditioning. I can't stand it. Where is the Seattle weather I love so much, right? So, but the above the O line would be to do what? Say, the sun is shining, it's a gorgeous day, I'm so lucky and I'm so grateful. So I hope you're thinking there, asking yourself, do I live below the O line or above, or do I just sort of hover at that line? Think about your daily lives. Are you a complainer? Do you allow other people who are complainers, do you allow them to drag you down below the O line? Or are you someone that can raise above the O line and to take people to new heights? I know when I talked about that in my business, we started to use that language when people would maybe start to go down. And in team meetings, I'd say, are you going down below the O line? And they, you know, or people would walk into my office, I kid you not, they'd come in and they'd sit down and they'd say, I don't mean to be negative, but, and I'd say, then don't. Like, if you have to excuse it, don't do it, right? And I do not mean, and I love this word my mom always uses, don't be Pollyanna, right? And like Ralph was saying, be purposeful. Be happy because you are. And sometimes you have to fake it till you make it, right? And you just have to, there was a song my uncle used to always sing when I was a kid, put on a happy face. And when I was in therapy, I said, I hated that. They always said, put on a happy face. I don't like that. But now I get it. Sometimes if you just put on a happy face, you'll smile and the whole world will smile with you. So think about that as you're growing your business, and you might have challenging days, right? You don't get that person to call you back. But just remember, it's just right around the corner. And so now I'm going to present you with another challenge, a different challenge. It's not a 7-day challenge, like you heard from Angela. It's a 24-hour challenge. You can start it whenever you want. There isn't an expiration other than 24 hours. So I challenge you to go 24 hours without complaining. I know, I heard you chuckle. I see some smiling faces. Go 24 hours without complaining. And if you do, what do you have to do? Reset the clock, exactly. So go 24 hours. And don't just do it to go 24 hours. I dare you, because you're going to find magic, I kid you not, that will come from not complaining for 24 hours. You'll find that when someone else complains and you're like, oh my God, no fly zone, you can't complain around me because I'm in my 24-hour zone. You will find yourself trying to lift people up because you don't want to go there. I don't want to go down into that space. Case in point, the time this went on, my oldest daughter was 17. And I had just come back from Chris Doris's mental toughness training, and I'm feeling awesome. I'm about 14 hours into my 24 hours, and I am on a roll. But then I wake up in the next morning, because I still had hours left, and there's my 17-year-old daughter. It was the summertime, like 7 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what she was doing up. She's sitting at the dining room table like this. Oh gosh, you're firstborn, and it tugs at your heart. Oh, my poor daughter, what am I to do? But you gotta remember, positive mindset. I said, so, what's going on, Megan? She says, I'm going off to college, and my boyfriend, he's going off to the East Coast, and I'm going up to Oregon, and we're gonna break up. I'm like, oh God, what do I do? What do I do? It's like, ripcord, where's I gotta go online. How do you respond, right? How do you deal with this? And so I'm thinking of Chris, and I said, I bet that's really hard. That's my new self talking. The old self would have been, oh, honey, and give her all these hugs. I said, I bet that's really hard for you. I said, but just think, you had 2 amazing years of high school love, whatever that's worth, but you had 2 years of someone who loves you. That's so wonderful. And you're going to go off to college knowing what that looks like. So just try to think of that. And then here's Chris Doris's website. Take a look. There's a video I want you to watch. It's called being all in. So then I said, okay, I gotta go. Then I go off to work. I'm just about to get to my office, and I get a text. And this is where I was watching Ralph's presentation, and one of his quotes was very similar to what Megan said. I got a text, and it said, I am what I create. I thought, oh my gosh, she listened, right? I usually get the eye roll, if any of you have kids, right? You get the, oh, mom. Oh. You know, I post something positive on Facebook for years before I wrote my book, and my kids were like, do you have to post another positive affirmation? You know, and then years later, they're texting me, thanks so much, Mom, that was so sweet. Anyhow, so it's really the power of not going down, and so down into that abyss, right? You can still have compassion and understanding and help somebody through some troubled times, like I did with Megan. In that same 24-hour period, the magic just kept happening. I was driving, I got to my office, and I had a message through LinkedIn. Speaking of social selling, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, is I had a message from someone that had worked for me 15 years prior. And it went something like this. Hi, Amy, it's John. I don't suppose you remember me. Of course I remembered him, but anyways, plus his name was on LinkedIn. Said, I'm not sure you remember me, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I quit the job when I did. I felt a lot of pressure from my parents to do something else. My brothers were in this other kind of business, and sales was just not revered in my family. And he said, and I wish I had stayed working for you. And I just want to say thank you. Now, when I managed him, I was 28 years old. I didn't know what I was doing. So to hear someone say thank you, and this was all in that 24-hour period. And then I go to my office, and I'm like, this is awesome. And I think, you get to the office, and people are always grouchy and trying to bring you down. And I have my one-on-ones with my team. And I was with one guy in particular, and we're talking about his quote, a great guy, young guy. And he says, I said, so where do you think you want to end the year? And we were like, he had 4 months left in the year. I said, 100%. I'm going to be at 100%. I said, you're at like 90% right now. You're only going to be at 100%? You can do better than that, because I've got this positive mindset, no complaining. They're like, she's on drugs or something. And so he said, okay, 125%. I said, okay, you're going to do 125%? Yeah. He ended the year at 150% because of his mindset. Now, it's so easy for us to just settle sometimes for less than 100%. And so think of that as your entrepreneurs and associates at all different levels have something to aspire to that isn't just what you're preconditioned to think. We're often preconditioned to think what's sort of status quo and what's normal, as opposed to what's extraordinary. So you could set your sights high, and if you don't get there, well, then you can keep trying. But in order to do that, you want to have that kind of mindset, that really positive mindset. So what happened over time is I became a student of happiness. And again, I chuckled at Ralph's thing that talked about happiness and choosing happiness. That you all wake up every day and can decide, am I going to be happy today? Even when you have things that might be sad in your life, you can still choose to be happy in those moments. And again, sometimes I get a lot of grief from friends and family that say, well, how can you always be happy? Like it's something bad. Anyhow, and I said, I'm not. There are times when I'm not, and I'm scared, and there's all kinds of uncertainty, like I said earlier on. But what I decided is I decided to keep a small window. It's kind of like a time clock, but I don't really time myself. And I say, okay, I'm going to feel bad right now because I need to. And the first chapter in my book is called Cry. When I don't know what to do, I cry. I don't know if any of others do that. I don't know what to do, so I cry. And it's sort of this cleansing thing. And then I say, okay, now I'm going to stop complaining. I'm not going to be a victim. And then I have to decide. Decide, and then I declare to the world that I'm going to do it, and then you do what it takes. So you can decide right now that you're going to do that 7-day challenge, or you can decide right now that you're going to bring more people into your business. And then tell everybody, you know what? I'm going to grow my business by 50%. And then go do it. Same kind of thing that Ralph said with his boss. He said, I don't care what the problem is, go fix it. Go make it happen. Be the change. The change is up to you. We can all go, products aren't good enough, the website's down, I can't fill out this form, no one's there when I reach them. But that's all about everybody else. I always wanted everybody else to change. You know, my ex-husband, my mom. Oh, Mom, you know, you should be so grateful that you had this great marriage with Dad. I know he's sick, but it's okay. And she's like, you're not listening to me. So I had to change the way that I was listening to her. And so think about that with the people that you're bringing into your business. It's about listening, and it's about building that personal connection and about that trust. And again, all of these themes have been resonating throughout the day here. Oh, darn. So always remember, you have a choice. You have a choice whether you want to embrace this business. Do you want to grow your business? Are you happy with where it is? But you decide, and you're the one that can make all those things happen. But sometimes, it's not always that easy because we have to do things differently. By a show of hands, how many people in the room have a Facebook account? Cool. How many people have an Instagram account? Okay. How many people use Twitter? Okay. How many people have gotten any of their downline folks in your business from social media? Amazing. For those of you in the front, there weren't very many hands behind you, few that were holding up your hands. And why is that? It's so overwhelming. And I live that world, and I've lived it for a long time. I've lived too much sometimes. I have some help now, thankfully. But it's overwhelming. Who do I reach? Which channel am I going to use? Do I post once or 3 times? When I first got an Instagram account, my middle daughter, who loves to just get at me, anyways, she said, I went on Instagram, and it was for my older daughter's 21st birthday in Las Vegas. So anyways, I'm posting all these pictures on Instagram. My daughter texted me, my middle daughter, she said, you should only post once on Instagram a day, Mom. Maybe twice, but it's really annoying. I said, okay, thanks for that wonderful tip. So it's really just to highlight the fact that there's a lot out there, and you're not sure what to do, and you want to develop a persona, right? Who are you? Who am I? Do I mix business and pleasure? Do I do a separate Facebook? I heard Marlena say she has 50. I think I have 7, and that's too much, and I have help doing it. But it's a lot to manage. What's my message? Do I want to mix the business with my, personal friends? And so I do it separate. Sometimes Facebook becomes, unfortunately, a place for creepers to follow you, right, and want to ask you out, and they treat it like a dating site. But don't let that. Make yours private if you can. So remember, you have a choice. But so all of this can be really overwhelming. And so what I'd like to say is, and Ralph said this as well, you move forward. You take one step. If you haven't gotten a client through your social media, maybe you can. So I just want to talk a little bit about the history of where did all this come from? And as I said, back in the day, in the 80s and 90s, I was selling long distance, and I had a pager. Does anybody remember pagers? Did you have pagers? Oh, yeah. And payphones. How about that? Payphones, pull over if you had any change and you had to call somebody back. I mean, pain, right? Now, today, my kids are like, my internet's too slow. I'm like, excuse me? Where it's not working on an airplane? Seriously. And then we had the mobile phones. Okay, it was really not a mobile phone. It was like a car battery. Do you remember that? For those of you that are too young, we could just imagine a car battery. And you put like a shoe up to your ear, right? You remember that? And I had evolved, and I was now selling merchant services, credit card processing terminals. You went away from the cha-ching thing and to the swipe that we now use the chip, but it was the first into the swiping. And then we had voicemail and group mail, voicemail. You could leave like 10 people a voicemail, and that was pretty cool. Thought, that was a really great way to have my voice heard. And then I had children, and they shut me down. I love my kids. And then kind of around 2015, all of that, laptops are everywhere. I had a laptop early on in my career, but it really was, it sat in my lap. That thing was so, so big you really couldn't carry it anywhere. But think about where technology has brought us and what it's allowed you to do. I used to have a physical office space with a green screen kind of computer and a Rolodex and a card holder, and I'd sit on my floor with 3x5 cards and a San Francisco Business Times, and I would cut things out of the paper, and I'd tape them on my cards, and then put them in my file box, and I'd make a call, one call at a time. If I wanted to send anybody information, how did I send it? By mail. Or I would drive by. I'd get in the car with my colleague, and we'd do drive-bys, we'd call them, where we would go throw stuff on people's table and say, look, long distance, I can save you 10 cents for every call you make, right? That was glamorous. Today, we have so much at our disposal in a little phone. That's our office now. You can do everything. You can run your business out of here, can't you? Right? You don't have all of that other stuff. And then now we have all these other tools, but how do you use them? And how do you use them while at the same time not threatening your relationship with your buyer, your customer, your downline, whatever in any business that you're talking about? How do you maintain trust and the relationship? And what this slide is really meant to articulate is that as technology has grown, our distance from our customer has grown. And we're not as close because we think that technology can replace good old-fashioned relationship building, planting the seeds of trust. Someone talked about the seeds will blossom, right? How do you plant the seeds of trust with people that you want to do business with? We lose sight of it because we think that social selling will replace all that. It doesn't replace it. It's an enabler. So when you use it, and it can be scary and daunting, and I was smiling and laughing when Marlena was giving her talk with the selfie stick, and hashtag, it's the thing that looks like, on the phone. I remember I never knew it. I go, what's a hashtag? But it is, it's a new language. Another funny thing, when I think selfie stick, talked about family again. My oldest daughter and her new boyfriend, this is not the one that she broke up with. This is someone new she met at college. Anyways, they're always taking pictures with the selfie stick. And then my middle daughter, who thinks she's such a card, she always says, nice selfie stick, Aaron, and is always just poking at it. But they're doing it, right? So you don't necessarily have to have a selfie stick. You can, if you have arms long enough, you can take pictures all over time, and your kids will love you for it when you do that. But so how do you use these tools effectively without losing the intimacy that you want as you're establishing your relationship? Has anybody ever had this experience, like when people are trying to sell something to you? Okay. So my last corporate job, because I left corporate America and started my own firm, Amy Slater Consulting, at the end of last year. But my last job, I was running global sales operations for TiVo, the TV company. And on my first day, within the first month of my job, I received a phone call, like on my desk phone, which was a shock to begin with, that my desk phone had a message on it. And I listened to the message, and it went something like this. Hi, Amy. This is Doug. Give me a call back. I'm like, scratching my head. Do I know a Doug? But, I've only been at the company a month, so maybe he's somebody important. So I went around and I asked my teammates, I said, is there a Doug that we work with? Should I know a Doug? Is he the CEO? I would have known that. No, don't know a Doug. Well, I thought I better call him back. That was my first mistake. I call him back. I get a message. I call Doug. It says, you've reached mailbox 3031. Okay, I'm like, not heard that before. Check the box. I'm a list maker, and it said call Doug, so I crossed that off my list. That I called Doug, I'm done, I did my job. Within 5 minutes, the phone rings back. Guess who it is? It's Doug. Hi, this is Doug. Thanks for calling me back. I said, could you tell me why you're calling? And he said, can you give me your last name? And he said it, and I've forgotten it, thankfully. And he told me his company name. And I said, is there a reason why you didn't leave your name or company? Oh, no, I hadn't thought of it, he said to me. Who does that? When I was selling for all those years, and I'm sure you make plenty of phone calls out to people, don't you leave your name and why you're calling? Kind of protocol, right? And so he acted shocked that I was shocked, and I felt like I was being conned. And I said, you know, Doug, I appreciate your honesty, and no thank you. I don't want to do business with you or your company ever. And here it goes, drum roll. He says, how about Tuesday at 9? Okay, we have 2 ears for a reason so that you can listen. And from that point on, and then the next week, I got an email from one of his other colleagues asking me if I would take some time and learn about their product. I've forgotten about that product. So my point is, don't let this kind of, emails and text and social media, we don't want to badger people into our business. We want to ingratiate them. This is a family, right? I've been here for just a few hours, and I came in yesterday, and Kimberly and I, we feel like, kindred spirits, and we've just been talking on the phone for the last few months, and it feels like family. So the people that you're bringing into your business, treat them like, nicer than family, probably. We should probably treat them nicer than family. But trust, building trust is really an important part of selling, regardless of the tools you're using. Just remember that not to let the tools get in the way. But so then why? Here I'm telling you all the reasons why you don't want to use them, but why should you use social selling? Well, because it helps you target. You can target people, right? You can target a demographic. You can go on Facebook and you can sort by where some people live, what cities they're in. You can do all kinds of crazy things. You can find different hashtags and groups of people in Twitter, and you can do the same thing in Instagram. So you can target your messaging through social media. It beats doing what I did, which is driving around door to door to door. Can you imagine doing your business today? Maybe some of you do it still, I don't know. But you just walk around your neighborhood, then what? Okay, let's say you got all your neighbors. Then how do you get the next neighborhood? You go to drive over to the next neighborhood and we're gonna walk around and go ask for the business? No, you've got to think about how do you scale. Social media helps us scale, and you don't have to be fancy. You don't have to be fancy. A lot of it is on video. You see a lot of people doing live video streams on Instagram and on Facebook. So just remember that you don't have to be fancy. And efficiency. Heck, you can get a lot of messaging out within like an hour if you're using social media. You can use things like LinkedIn. You can stay up on that. You can learn about competitive products. You can really become more knowledgeable, and then go track all the different people. And guess what? It's not just your future teammates, but it's the people that are already a part of your downline, right? How do you communicate with them? Inspire them. It's all through leveraging social media. How do you build your own brand of who you are as a leader, as an individual, as a business person, as an entrepreneur? It's a way to grow your business. There are all kinds of statistics, and if I kept my notes here, but I didn't want to use them, I could tell you the statistics. But one big one I do recall, which is if you can improve your selling by 40%, studies have shown, by using social media. Increase your sales by 40%. And that's pretty significant. With that, also your return on investment, because the investment is so low in terms of time and money that you can spend in using social media. But you need to have a strategy, right? Do you just throw this stuff out to everybody? No, because it can become a lot of noise. But it's all around education. And more people are using social media. So if the people that you're trying to attract are on social media, guess what? You got to dive right in. Because if you are selling to people where they aren't, you're going to come up empty-handed. You need to go where they are. And so that comes to some degrees, and I'll talk a little bit more about personalization. So again, other ways, prospecting, targeting, finding out who is it that I should go after. Social media provides that entree for you to learn more. It allows you to network and connect with people who might know other people, right? I encourage every single one in this room, if you're on LinkedIn, to connect with me. It's like a hobby. It just is to me. I just like to connect people. I'm on LinkedIn all the time, and people say, oh, it takes so much time to do it. It takes so much time. It doesn't really take that much time when you're just doing it in little bits. If you have the app on your phone, you can do a lot of it. I read a lot of the news and business news on LinkedIn when I'm standing in line at the grocery store or at the airport or what have you. So really start to become familiar with it. LinkedIn is an amazing one of those tools for that. And different aspects around social selling, really around educating, nurturing. You may not have someone make a decision to choose Univera the first time you speak with them, right? I don't know what the average, each of you have a different sort of average cycle to bring somebody on, but sometimes it isn't overnight. And I'd like to share a couple of examples where I am a sucker now, and I'm sure a bunch of you are going to come rush the stage and say, come with us, my team is the best, because I'm kind of a sucker for this kind of thing. I love these things. And so when I was feeling kind of lethargic and I was going through grief when my father passed a few months ago, I remembered a gal who had reached out to me to talk about isogenics. Are any of you familiar with isogenics? And so similar, vegan shake and some, things to help my brain. I'm like, I need all that I can get. My dad just died of Lewy body dementia. I'm thinking it's probably too late, but I got to do something, right, to help myself. And I had spoken with her 6 months prior, but I remembered, and she never pressured me. She just had introduced herself to me via Facebook, because we had connected on Facebook, on my business Facebook page. And she said, if you're ever interested, let me know. 6 months later, I remembered her because her name is Amy. Anyways, and so I went back to Amy. I know a lot of Amy's these days. I went back to Amy and I said, I think I'm ready. She didn't pressure me, but this was all on Facebook. Then, if any of you, men and women, use Rodan and Fields, right? Skincare line, another direct marketing. And I had someone probe me on Facebook and ask if I was interested. And I said, oh, you could maybe, tell me a little about it, send me something. I was not really interested at the time. And then she sent me some facial that I could do at home or whatever. And that was that. And then she kept peppering me. Are you, do you want, and it was really kind of annoying. A few months later, a different Rodan and Fields person posted some pictures before and after of someone's hands. And I'm not 25 anymore, and hands are things that, I've lived at the beach, and I want my hands to look young. And she had pictures of before and after. I'm like, oh my gosh, those hands look amazing. And this was from a different rep or associate, and I messaged her, and I said, where do I sign up? Because the pictures spoke what she didn't have to tell me. She was just sharing a success story, kind of like you all can share with some of the people that really are benefiting, maybe after this 7-day challenge. Leverage your social selling skills and your social media skills. And then, do you know that today, that same gal, Robin, who lives in Boston, and I live in San Francisco, but I buy from her now, the skincare line, she sent me a text today and said, I hope your talk goes great. That was just a text, right? Found me on Facebook, and now she's like my friend. And so you kind of get out of your head a little bit and into your heart. And I know that Ralph talked about this too. A lot of it is about our heart. We work with people that we care about and that we want to spend time with and that we want to do some business with too. So remember, it doesn't have to be so scary, and I bet a number of you have stories that are similar to that. So bridge the human divide, right? Technology can help, but a relationship and a heart makes that difference. Don't forget that on the other end of that technology is a human being. So be thoughtful with your messaging as opposed to just blasting things out, and know your audience. Know who it is when you're sending a message. Know who you are. Put your best self forward. Make sure that the profile that you put out there is the one that you want, that's professional, that you would feel proud of if someone came across it. I know that when my daughter was interviewing for jobs, this is the one who just recently graduated from University of Oregon, and she was yes, go Ducks, exactly. And so she was getting ready to do some job searching. I said, have you looked at your Facebook lately, honey? How are the pictures looking? Is that the image that you want to promote to a future employer? Like, it's your 21st birthday and I took you to Las Vegas. Maybe you ought to take those pictures off. And remember, it's about your image. I had some professional photos done with my family, and each of my older daughters, I had them have a photo taken for LinkedIn. And they were college-age students, but it's really about your brand. Who are you? Because what you have out there in social media says a lot. They'll know you before they even meet you. And you want to make sure that it's the image that you want them to have, not one of you at the bars in Las Vegas. Know me as a person. So understand that when you're going to maybe talk to some people and you want to bring them into your business, try to find out what you can about them so that you can personalize the experience. You can certainly do a lot of that face-to-face, but do some homework before. There was nothing that was more frustrating to me than when someone would come and try to sell at me. They didn't know anything about me. I'm like, just Google me or go on LinkedIn, and you don't even have to be famous. I'm not famous. You can learn a lot about someone just by typing their name into Google. You can find out. You can find out what business they're in. So when you're going out there, find out a little bit about them. Use it as a tool for knowledge. And as you're looking and having conversations with people, you might find out that someone's a runner. It was fantastic. I had a sales gal reach out to me, smarter than Doug, and she sent me a water bottle and a t-shirt from her company and said, I was reading one of your blogs and you talked about having run a marathon. Now, don't get excited. I ran one and never again. Just don't think, oh, wow, I can't believe it. Yeah, I can't believe it either, and I'll never do it again, but I did it. But she thought enough to send me a water bottle and a t-shirt saying, because I read about you. Aside from it being flattering, it was smart. Because guess what? I took a meeting with her because she showed that she did some homework, not like some other clown that was just calling me and not leaving his last name. So use things like as simple as Google. You don't even have to always use Facebook or Twitter or all those things. Use Google to find out about the people that you're working with. Selling is about personalization. It's about being personal. It's about your heart. It's about your relationships. That's what makes a difference. That's what makes I don't even know that's there, the Univera difference, right? It's all about that difference. So 2016, for me, now I know it's 2017, but in 2016, I ended a career in corporate America and I went out on my own. I went out on my own and I found my purpose. And Simon Sinek, I don't know if any of you follow him. He's phenomenal, one of my favorite thought leaders. Regardless, and I will read this quote, I usually don't read my slides, but regardless of what we do in our lives or our why, our driving purpose, cause, or belief never changes. Find what you love, do what you love, serve your purpose, and you'll find magic. You'll find magic in places that you never expected when you slow down and you decide and you declare and you do what it takes. And finally, you take the 7-day challenge. You couple that with the 24-hour challenge of not complaining, and I welcome you, please, to share a little bit of that magic that happens after your 24-hour challenge, because I'd love to be able to share a little more magic with each of you. Thank you so much for having me.